Hakaz and Hiten. Looking at Zanpakuto in the hands of Muyang not far away, Aizen's face was flickering. From ancient times to now, among the Zanpakuto recorded in Soul Society, Kyoraku Shansui's Kaden Kayakatsu and Shiryukatake Sojio no Kodawari were the only two pairs of Zanpakuto. Both of them were the disciples of Head Captain, and they were the first to become captain after the establishment of the Spiritual Arts Academy. In addition, no one had ever heard of Zanpakuto who had a pair. But who could have thought that Muyang's Zanpakuto was also a pair, but what was more surprising was that he actually hid this matter for 200 years until today. What kind of thoughts did he have to hide this secret for 200 years? Hakaz and Hiten, this is the real appearance of my Zanpakuto. This is the last card I have hidden for you for 200 years, Aizen. Looking at Aizen, Muyang said meaningfully. For me. Hearing Muyang's words, Aizen's face showed a trace of confusion. Muyang hid for himself for 200 years. How is this possible? 200 years ago, he was not enough to attract the attention of the other party. Don't joke, if you want to disturb my mind, I advise you to change the way. No matter what reason you hide it, it is all meaningless. It is just an extra Zanpakuto. The gap between you and the dimension is irreparable. Go to hell. Aizen moved, and he suddenly appeared on the side of Muyang. The Zanpakuto in his hand waved out, a terrible momentum hidden. Muyang raised his left hand, and the wind-breaking blade slashed in the air. A sharp sound was emitted between the blade, and Zanpakuto suddenly covered with a layer of blue light and collided with Aizen's Zanpakuto. With a shake of his right hand, the Hiten in his hand instantly turned into a bolt of lightning. Without the slightest breath, it instantly pierced through Aizen's eyebrows. How is it possible? His pupils suddenly enlarged, Aizen's eyes were full of disbelief, and he did not even notice that he was pierced through the forehead by the other party. No. It was not that he did not notice. At the moment when Muyang made his move, Aizen did grasp his movements, but the body could not keep up with the movements of the other party. Not only the body, even the consciousness could not keep up with the speed of the other party. It seemed that the moment he noticed that the other party was about to attack, the Zanpakuto in Muyang's hand pierced through his eyebrows. Pucci. Taking back the sword, Muyang's eyes were still staring at Aizen's body. Although it did pierce Aizen's head, he was no longer a monster that could be judged by common sense. Even so, he could not guarantee that he had killed the other party. So powerful I can't see clearly at all. Swallowing a mouthful of water, the expression on Kurosaki Ichigo's face was slightly stiff. Muyang's last shot, he did not see anything. From the moment Muyang was almost killed by Aizen, to now reversing the situation and piercing Aizen's head. It was just a matter of a blink of an eye. Several people on the side did not even react. The scene had become such a situation. Now it was not only Kurosaki Ichigo who was surprised, Stark and Harabel were also stunned on the side. They did not know that Muyang also hid this move. Letting out the breath that had been pressed on his chest, Ikemara Jin looked uncertain. Did Aizen die like this? What's the point of hiding for so many years? However, if such an attack is not dead, even if you rely on your long-hidden Bankai real ability, can you defeat Aizen? Some fragments flashed in Ikemara Jin's brain from time to time. The weak and helpless Ranjaku in the snow. Chasing his back in front her that made people felt pity in Aizen, was the one hidden behind the scenes and planned everything. The closed eyes suddenly opened, and a light blue light in the eyes flashed with an amazing killing intent, disappearing as the eyes closed again. Plop. As if he had lost his life, Aizen's body leaned back and fell to the ground. The light in his eyes gradually dimmed, and it seemed that the fire of life had been extinguished. Kimura. Don't come over, Stark. You and Harabel retreat. The battle below is not something you can intervene. What? Is this guy not dead after being pierced through the head? Hearing Muyang's words, a trace of horror flashed in Stark's eyes. Can he still live after being pierced by Zanpakuto? This is simply unimaginable. Ah! Aizen, who originally seemed to be dead, suddenly let out a roar, and just as he screamed, a terrible Ryuryoku burst out from his body, like it was going to crush everything. Something of that level, maybe it should not be called Ryuryoku. Aizen fell to the ground and slowly stood up. A crack appeared in the middle of the eyebrows that had been penetrated by Muyang with Zanpakuto, and it looked like an eye in the middle of the eyebrows. See, Muyang, this is the current me. No matter what kind of injury it is, it can recover in a short time. You can't kill me at all. Holding Zanpakuto in his hand, Aizen's body moved and appeared again beside Muyang, and Zanpakuto in his hand suddenly waved down. When waving his broken wind blade again to block Aizen's attack, Muyang shook his right hand, and the broken sword once again pierced Aizen's body. This time, it was the throat. It's useless. The wound on his throat quickly recovered. Aizen turned his head and looked at Muyang, his eyes showing a bit of mockery. No matter how many times you try, you can't kill me, but I can slowly become stronger with the help of Jayaku, until I finally kill you. In the middle of the conversation, Zanpakuto in Aizen's hand waved down again. Muyang waved his sword again to block, but his arm could not help but tremble, and his body also had a moment of pause. The power from Aizen's Zanpakuto was more than a little bit stronger than before. Ha! It seems that Jayaku has begun to promote my evolution again. Now my strength is above you, and you have no chance. Perceiving the pause of Muyang, Aizen suddenly laughed, and he seemed to have seen the picture of Muyang's defeat and death. The eyes suddenly burst out a bright light, and Muyang's movements suddenly accelerated. In the eyes of Aizen, Muyang's body suddenly became a blurred shadow, and the sight could not be captured at all, let alone keep up with his movements. Swish swish swish. He-Ten shook quickly, leaving countless wounds on Aizen's body. In just a moment, Muyang left a large number of wounds on Aizen's body. The fast-dancing Zanpakuto suddenly slowed down, and Aizen's eyes immediately caught the figure of Muyang. Zanpakuto in his hand immediately waved out with full strength, completely ignoring the wounds on his body. Kill! A layer of silver radiance suddenly appeared on the broken wind blade in his left hand. Muyang pointed it down. Although the action was not hard, the moment Zanpakuto fell, it felt like everything was going to be crushed. It's over. A thought flashed in his mind. Aizen had not changed his move yet. Muyang's Hakaz had been pointed to his chest. A bit of silver light burst out, and the place where Aizen's chest and the Hakaz came into contact suddenly disappeared. Only the next Jayaku was pulsating there, emitting a charming and wonderful light. Swish! A figure suddenly came from afar, a slender hand reached out, grabbed Jayaku on Aizen's chest, the body floated in the air, and then fell in front of Muyang not far away. Although he noticed that someone was approaching, Muyang did not make any movements, but let the person take Aizen's Jayaku. You still made a move after all, Ikemara Jin. Muyang looked at Ikemara Jin not far away with complex eyes. This kid he once tried to get close to, although he reached a little agreement with him at that time, but in the end, this kid does not trust him at all, or in other words, he has never trusted anyone, because he is such a person. As he himself said, he is a snake, cold-blooded reptile, no emotion, just looking for prey, and then swallowed it. In his heart, the only one who really cares, maybe only Matsumoto Ranjaku. Ikemara Jin's eyes slightly opened, light blue pupils revealed a kind of bone-deep coldness. Although Ikemara Jin had a smile on his face, his eyes were cold like ice that could not be melted. Do you want to make a move against me? Kimura. I thought you should know that I have no hostility towards you. Looking at the person on the opposite side, Kimura Muyang was in a complicated mood. He really had a very complicated emotion towards this indifferent but gentle person. There is no emotion for everyone else for him except Matsumoto Ranjaku, who he loved deeply. Who knows? Holding Jayaku in one hand and Zanpakuto in the other hand, Ikemara Jin's face was still smiling, but his body was emitting undisguised killing intent. He finally got Hijayaku, and finally could take back what was taken away. No matter who it was, it could not stop him. You really shouldn't get careless now. Do you think you can defeat Aizen just like this? Huh? Hearing Muyang's words, Ikemara Jin was suddenly shocked. Even if he robbed Aizen Hijayaku, he couldn't completely kill him. Yes, but I didn't expect you to make a move at this time. It really surprised me, Jin. Aizen's voice suddenly sounded, and the body that had fallen to the ground slowly floated up. Several pairs of butterfly wings appeared behind him, and there was something terrible brewing in the crack between the eyebrows, revealing a thrilling breath. I already knew that you stayed with me to kill me, but I was curious about how you planned to take my life, so I kept you with me. I didn't expect you to make a move at this time. However, the Hijayaku you robbed, whether it is in my body or not, belongs to me. As soon as the voice fell, Hijayaku held in Ikemara Jin's hand suddenly jumped, broke free from his palm and floated in the air. Aizen's body in the distance suddenly turned into Reisha and broke, and then reorganized around Ikemara Jin. The moment he appeared, Zanpakuto in his hand waved down. Although he realized that Aizen had shot himself, the body had no time to react. Ikemara Jin's body had just turned, and he saw that Zanpakuto was getting bigger and bigger in his sight. When the knife light appeared, Muyang's body instantly crossed the space and appeared next to Aizen and the others. Zanpakuto in his hand picked up and blocked Aizen's attack toward Ikemara Jin. What, I'm just scolding my disobedient subordinates, do you have the right to intervene, Kimura Muyang? The head was slightly tilted. Aizen looked at Muyang who appeared beside him. His eyes were calm. After the narrow escape just now, he advanced a few steps on the road of evolution to become a god. The rapid promotion of strength brought him great confidence. Even the strength of Muyang who beat him to death not long ago seemed insignificant to him at this time. Because of his strength, he was fearless. I just can't bear to see a tragedy happen. Interesting. Hearing Muyang's answer, Aizen's mouth showed a sneer. It seemed to be dismissive of Muyang's answer, but also seemed to be mocking Ikemara Jin's previous behavior. Don't want to see the tragedy happen? Then you will be the tragedy. With a careless tone, Aizen stepped forward, Zanpakuto in his hand gently waved and slashed at Muyang's body. When Zanpakuto waved, there was no fluctuation, it seemed to be just a casual attack. But it was such a slash. However, it made Muyang's face change greatly. His body flashed and he kept retreating. His Zanpakuto missed and slashed on the ground. Without any warning, the place where the blade fell suddenly turned into ashes. Not far away, several people who saw this scene suddenly changed color. This degree of destructive power was too horrible. It clearly looked light, but it had such terrible destructive power, which was beyond their knowledge. Seeing the destruction caused by himself, Aizen was also stunned. Then he laughed and pointed to the huge pit left on the ground, and excitedly said to Muyang, "See, this is my current strength. Even I feel terrible strength. As long as I wave Zanpakuto casually, I can change the terrain. In front of such strength, what do you think you can do?" Looking at the traces left on the ground, Muyang closed his mouth and did not speak. This destructive power was indeed beyond his reach, but, if he surrendered, it would be the end of everything. His hands tightened, holding his own Zanpakuto. Muyang's body turned into a silver light and instantly appeared in front of Aizen. Zanpakuto in his hand slashed at Aizen's head. Even if Aizen was almost immortal now, he could recover quickly after being hurt, but as long as he could suppress him all the time, his strength would eventually be exhausted. Wang. Reaching out to block Muyang's attack, Aizen's arm swung, throwing Muyang's body out, and then his body also instantly turned into Reisha and shattered, directly recombining behind Muyang, and Zanpakuto in his hand cut down on Muyang's body. There was a warning sign in his heart, and Muyang's heart moved. In his sight, all the movements around him suddenly slowed down, only his body was not affected. Quickly turning around, sideways avoiding Aizen's slash, Muyang's arm picked up, his Zanpakuto crossed Aizen's chest, but only left a thin wound on his chest, and even blood did not flow out. With some surprise in his eyes, he looked at Muyang. Aizen's heart raised a trace of doubt. In the moment of waving the knife, Muyang's speed suddenly became several times faster, and this was not the first time. Something similar happened before, and the speed became faster in an instant, completely beyond his own detection. However, pressing the doubts in his heart, Aizen's face showed a little smile. No matter what happened to him, no matter what kind of ability he had, in the face of absolute strength, everything was meaningless. The body flashed again, and Zanpakuto in the hands of Aizen waved down. Boom! A violent roar came from the place where the two Zanpakuto intersected, shaking everything around them into dust. It's really amazing, to be able to take my slash head-on. Looking at Muyang in front of him, Aizen's face had a chuckle. To tell the truth, I didn't expect that my strength would be promoted to such a degree. I am very happy that you are so strong. Muyang, thanks to you, I can have the opportunity to try this strength that surpasses Shinigami and Hollow. With a smile on his face, Aizen once again raised his knife and waved it at Muyang, and it seemed that even the surrounding air was cut into pieces. Boom! Along with the fight between Muyang and Aizen, a burst of horrible sounds kept ringing in the sky above the Karakura city. Accompanied by those horrible sounds, from time to time there were waves of battle ripples, knocking down several buildings around, and the whole city turned into ruins. Hey, I said, don't look at me so closely. What do you think I can do in such a battle? Ikemara Jin squinted his eyes and said to Haribel standing next to him. His tone was a little innocent. Since he survived from Aizen because of Muyang's protection, Haribel had been standing beside him. No matter how fierce the battle over there was, she still paid attention to him, as if he would do something. Your position is not clear, so this is also what should be done. After Stark explained, he turned his eyes to the distance again. Muyang was fighting with Aizen over there. The aftermath of the battle could be clearly felt even here. The power that was strong enough to make people feel desperate was really unimaginable. He held Zanpakuto with both hands. Although he still maintained the fighting posture, Kurosaki Ichigo's body had been stiff to the point that he could not move. Not only his body, but even the will to fight had almost disappeared. After seeing the strength that Aizen and Muyang displayed, Kurosaki Ichigo really realized how weak his strength was. Ichigo. An arm suddenly put on Kurosaki Ichigo's shoulder, waking him up from the horror. His eyes gradually recovered some color, and Kurosaki Ichigo turned to look at the owner of the arm. Dad! After seeing the familiar face of Kurosaki Ishin, Kurosaki Ichigo came back to his senses, and a trace of concern flashed in his eyes. Are you okay? Brat, since when did you care about me? I've been lying there for so long and you didn't do anything. Kurosaki Ishin punched Kurosaki Ichigo on the head and said half-jokingly. That. Hearing Kurosaki Ishin's words, Kurosaki Ichigo's body was slightly stunned, and his face showed a trace of shame. Just now, because the battle was too fierce, he forgot the three of them who fell on the side for a while. Even if Ikemara Jin suddenly left later, he did not think to check Kurosaki Ishin's situation. Of course, the big reason was that he was shocked by the battle between Aizen and Muyang. Shocked by their battle? Seeing the expression on Kurosaki Ichigo's face, Kurosaki guessed the thoughts in his heart and said directly. Well, this level of battle is simply. Kurosaki Ichigo nodded and looked at the two people who were still fighting in the distance. After thinking for a long time, he still did not think of what words to use to describe their battle, which was not the extent of human power. That kind of battle is simply a monster, said Kurosaki Ichigo, and Kurosaki Ishin changed his voice. However, even if Kimura is still fighting with Aizen now, the final result is still hard to say. Perhaps the possibility of defeat is higher. What? Turning to look at Kurosaki Ishin, Kurosaki Ichigo's eyes were full of disbelief. Even with Muyang's current powerful strength, he still couldn't defeat Aizen. Although Kimura's strength is really strong, even now, he can still fight Aizen head-on, but as Aizen said, there is a dimensional difference between them. Moreover, Aizen, who has Jayaku, can become infinitely stronger, and the strength of Kimura will gradually weaken with the battle. After hearing Kurosaki Ishin's words, Kurosaki Ichigo tightened his grip on his saber, and even his joints turned white. Is there really no other way? Is everything over? No. We still have hope. Suddenly raising his head, Kurosaki Ichigo stared at Kurosaki Ishin. His eyes were full of curiosity. At this time, any hope was precious. It might decide the fate of the entire world. That hope is you, Ichigo. Looking seriously at Kurosaki Ichigo's slightly confused face, Kurosaki Ishin's determined tone was full of determination. As long as you can learn the final Getsuga Tensho, Ichigo. Huchi. Muyang bent his waist, and his mouth emitted a burst of uncontrollable rapid breathing. It seems that your physical fitness is not good enough to reach the limit. His face was still relaxed. Aizen looked at Muyang opposite him, but he was not in a hurry to attack. When victory was almost in his hand, he was generous to show some kindness to the enemy. Besides. However, thanks to you, I can have time to slowly adapt to this rapid increase in strength. Although he was seriously injured because of the battle with Muyang, it was also because of this that he could really master this strength. This Jayaku brought him a very powerful force. Damn it. I really can't. Looking at Aizen, who was still relaxed on the opposite side, Muyang's face was ugly. He seemed to have made a mistake. There was no way to kill Aizen quickly, but let him slowly become familiar with his own battle and grasp the power of rapid improvement. The current Aizen is several times more difficult than before. If I knew it, I would not have been strong. If I let Ichigo use Mujetsu, the ending would be better than now. By the way, why has the seal Kisuk set in Aizen body not taken effect? After a long battle, even with Muyang's temperament, he could not help but feel a little depressed. He could not help but doubt his initial choice. This kind of enemy, who could not be killed no matter what, was the most desperate. There was no dawn of victory at all. Looking at Aizen who was not far away from him, Muyang smiled slightly. It was really that he had prepared for this battle for 100 years. Who knew that it was still not good? Originally, he thought he could defeat Aizen, but now, not only himself, but also others would be implicated. His eyes looked around and swept through his friends over the years. The first thing he saw was Suzuki Kusu with a face full of concern and tension. Then there were the people lying on the ground, the people of Godai 13. Stark, Harabel and several others, and Ikamaru Jin, he just rescued him from Aizen. Who knew that even he was going to die now? Also, Kisuk and Yoruchi, these two guys actually lay on the ground for so long without getting up, it is really abnormal, they did not suffer such a heavy injury. His eyes swept over Kisuk and Yoruchi, and Muyang suddenly had a strange feeling in his heart. With their strength, they should not be killed so easily. However, I always feel that I have missed something. A light suddenly flashed in Muyang's mind, and Muyang's eyes suddenly bloomed with a light. Kurosaki Ichigo and his father were gone. What is it, you seem to think of something? Noticing the light flashing in Muyang's eyes, Aizen asked, and then without waiting for Muyang to answer, he continued to say, speaking of which, Kurosaki Ichigo and Kurosaki Ishin seem to be missing, but it doesn't matter. I will deal with you first, and then clean them up one by one. Although his mouth said words of killing intent, Aizen did not put on any special posture. He just slowly raised his foot and then moved forward. Although the movement looked slow, he stepped in front of Muyang in one step, and Zanpakuto in his hand suddenly waved down. 3 times the speed. With a cry in his heart, Muyang's body shook, and then his body moved at a speed beyond the limit. He instantly crossed a distance and avoided Aizen's slash. Zanpakuto in his hand picked up and cut to Aizen's head. When Zanpakuto in his hand crossed and blocked Muyang's attack. Aizen turned his head with a smile on his face. This move of yours is invalid for me. Don't you understand? With the strength of his arm, he pushed away Muyang's Zanpakuto. Aizen smiled with confidence and explained Muyang's ability. What you are using is the power of time. By changing the flow of time in your body in an instant, you can get the speed beyond the limit. However, the use of this ability will also cause a lot of burden on your own body. Your body should be unable to bear such strength anymore. Listening to Aizen clearly say his ability, Muyang's face did not change, but the hand holding the knife was a little tight, showing his inner turmoil. Ah! Noticing the subtle reaction of Muyang, Aizen chuckled and continued to speak, although I don't know why you suddenly ignited the will to fight again, this is just a futile effort. No matter how hard you try, in the end, it will only extend the time of your defeat and death, and the result will not change. Hehe, although it is a very old-fashioned word, but if you work hard, you may not necessarily fail, but if you don't work hard, you will definitely fail. A light flashed on the Hakaz in his left hand, and a sharp cry came from the hollow blade, making Aizen on the opposite side frown, which made him very uncomfortable. If I am not wrong, now Ichigo must be learning the final Getsuga Tensho with the help of Isshin. What I have to do now is to delay as much as possible, at least wait until Ichigo learns that move. Do you still have moves that you haven't used yet? Seeing Muyang's posture, Aizen's eyes showed some interest. For him now, this is also an interesting thing. Looking at the previous powerful opponent struggling in front of him. Stepping on the ground, Muyang rushed forward. Since he decided to delay time, he could no longer use his ability unscrupulously. He could only rely on his own slash and body to delay as much time as possible. The left-hand Hakaz continued to slash, and the blade light flashed from time to time, continuous and endless. Even Aizen had to treat it seriously. When the left-hand Hakaz was swung, the right-hand Hiten was also stabbed from time to time. Every time it stabbed, it could always catch the weakest part of Aizen's defense. For a time, it was also fighting with Aizen. Great, you can fight with me like this with only slash. Every shot can accurately grasp the gap in my defense. This kind of slash is indeed above me. It is worthy of being called the Swordsman of Kusajishi. Avoiding Muyang's attack, Aizen's action is also slightly awkward. Although he can always rely on his own powerful strength to resist Muyang's attack in the end, but in terms of slash, he is indeed at a disadvantage. However, the corner of his mouth showed a smile. Even under such an attack, Aizen was not flustered at all, which was absolute trust in his strength. Your attack style is too monotonous. The sword in your left hand is just a slash, while the right hand is a stab. Although this kind of attack method is no problem when dealing with ordinary people, when fighting with people who are obviously stronger than yourself, once you are seen through the attack style, you are doomed, just like now. A glimmer of light flashed in his eyes. After accurately grasping a flaw of Muyang, Zanpakuto in Aizen's hand flashed, penetrated Muyang's attack defense line, and stabbed his throat. Once Muyang, who does not have the ability to recover like Aizen, is stabbed, there is no escape. When the sword in his right hand flashed and suddenly cut on Zanpakuto of Aizen, leaving a small gap on it. Nanny! There was a flash of surprise in his eyes, and Aizen's body disintegrated into erasure again, and then reorganized in the distance. Looking at Zanpakuto who was broken in his hand, Aizen's eyes were surprised and doubtful. You underestimate me too much. How can I make such a low-level mistake? Your so-called left-hand chop and right-hand stab is just a small habit of mine. My slash is not so childish. Zanpakuto in his hand flipped, and Muyang's face showed a trace of excitement. Although it was just delaying time now, after discarding the previous concept of life and death, this kind of evenly matched battle really made him feel a sense of blood boiling. It had nothing to do with life and death, no standpoint, just enjoyed fighting. With a move of his feet, Muyang rushed forward again. Zanpakuto, which was in his hands, waved at the same time. All of them were slashing and thrusting. Although it looked a bit wild, there was no flaw. Damn it! In the end, you still can't do anything. In the distance, Chur Hitsugaya, who had recovered a little consciousness under the treatment of Unohana Retsu, lay on the ground and looked at the battle in the distance with unwillingness. Although his consciousness woke up, his body had not recovered and he could not move at all. Even if his heart was full of unwillingness, Chur Hitsugaya could only lie in the medical device and stare. Moreover, although he was very unwilling to accept it in his heart, he knew that with his ability, even if his body recovered now, he still could not do anything. That level of battle was not something he could interfere in. Dungai. Is it still not done? Ichigo. His body was limp on the ground. Kurosaki Ishin's single-minded face was covered in sweat. He looked like he was struggling. There were several chains wrapped around his body. The other end of the chains was inserted into the walls on both sides of the dangai. This was a device that could lock down the restraint in the dangai by releasing Ryuryoku. However, even with his Ryuryoku, he would not be able to withstand it after enduring for so long. On the opposite side of Kurosaki Ishin, Kurosaki Ichigo sat cross-legged, and the Getsuga crossed on his knees. It was the standard sword meditation posture. The hair on his head had become long at some point, covering Kurosaki Ichigo's face. From the perspective of Kurosaki's single-minded mind, he could clearly see a few bloodstains on the corners of Ichigo's mouth. Although with the help of Kisuke Urahara, it temporarily solved the problem of Tatsu, but if you still can't finish it on time, I will not be able to hold on. My Ryuryoku is not enough to continue to be in a stable stream. Hurry up, Ichigo, there is not much time left. Cough cough. His body was half bent, and he reached out to cover his mouth. As Muyang coughed, traces of blood continuously flowed out of the corner of his mouth. Damn, is it already at the limit? The scene in front of him was slightly blurred, and Muyang could not help but shake his head, trying to wake himself up. It seems that your ability has reached the limit. Aizen held his own Zanpakuto in his hand. No, now perhaps it should not be said about him. Now his arm and Zanpakuto are almost integrated, and it is impossible to accurately judge where Zanpakuto is and where his arm is. I should praise you, just as a Shinigami, you can be entangled with me for so long, but I am now at a different level from you. Did you see that my Zanpakuto has begun to merge with my body? Although I don't know what this represents, I think that this may be Zanpakuto's original form. With your strength that has not yet understood this level, it is not enough to fight with me. Displaying his right hand that has already fused with his Zanpakuto, Aizen's face has a smug smile. Why is Ichigo still not good? Do I really have to use that? The arm tightened, and a trace of struggle flashed in Muyang's eyes. The power that was still uncontrollable, he himself did not know what would happen after it was used, but until now Ichigo has not appeared. If this goes on, he really can't care about anything. Thank you, Muyang. It is because of you that I have truly grasped this upgraded power, and have a deeper understanding of this power. But now you are useless. Walking to Muyang, Aizen arm raised, and his eyes flashed a cold light. As a test stone, you are very good. Fight! Muyang hardened his heart, and a hidden power slowly awakened in the depths of his body. Swish! Bang! Just as Muyang was about to risk his life and fight to the death, a black figure suddenly flashed in front of him. The black Zanpakuto in his hand was raised and collided with Aizen's slash. Then a violent impact suddenly broke out from the place where their weapons intersected. The rolling airwaves blew Muyang's body back a few steps. The originally restless power once again lay dormant in his body. Kurosaki Ichigo. Seeing the person who appeared in front of him to block his attack, Aizen's eyes flashed a trace of undisguised surprise. It was actually this boy who blocked his attack, which was really beyond Aizen's expectation. After withdrawing his saber, Kurosaki Ichigo flashed to Muyang's side and threw Kurosaki Ishin, who was on his shoulder, to Muyang. Kimura-san, thank you for holding on for so long. I'll leave my father to you. Leave the rest to me. Looking at the youth in front of him who had matured a lot, Muyang could not help but feel emotional. His growth was really too fast. The current him was already a strong person who was not inferior to him, whether it was strength or spirit. Don't worry, leave your heart to me. You can fight with peace of mind. Thank you, Kimura-san. His eyes were calm. Even if he was about to face an enemy like Aizen, Kurosaki Ichigo was not nervous at all. Behind his calm eyes was a strong extreme confidence, which was absolute trust in himself. He believed that he would never lose to anyone. Kurosaki Ichigo, you are really a person beyond my expectations. Looking at Kurosaki Ichigo who appeared in front of him again, Aizen's tone was a little strange. Although from the beginning, I was full of expectations for you, who is beyond expectations. I thought you would bring me some unexpected surprises, but I didn't expect you to be able to do this. The nonsense is over here. Aizen, I am here to defeat you. With his head slightly tilted, Kurosaki Ichigo raised his arm, and Zanpakuto in his hand aimed at Aizen. His eyes were still cold, without any fluctuation because of Aizen's words. Interesting, do you think that you are on the same level as me after blocking my previous attack? It's ridiculous to think that you can defeat me. I can't feel any Ryatsu from you at all. It seems that you have abandoned your own Ryu-ryoku by a means and obtained an extraordinary physical strength. No wonder you can block my slash just now, but you can't defeat me with this alone. Even if you abandon Ryu-ryoku, the physical strength you get is not comparable to my body that surpasses Shinigami and Hollow. Looking at Kurosaki Ichigo with disdain, Aizen was not nervous at all. Even Muyang was defeated by his own hands. With this little devil, he could do nothing at all. He actually thought that he could defeat himself with a spirit body far beyond ordinary people. It has to be said that this is really an innocent idea. Let me tell you with my slash. You abandoned the strength that Ryu-ryoku obtained, which is insignificant to me. Stepping forward, Aizen's arm swung down. The body stood in place, without any turmoil because of Aizen's previous speech. Looking at Aizen's slash, Kurosaki Ichigo's eyes were still calm. Just as Aizen's Zanpakuto was about to cut him, he suddenly stretched out his left hand and grabbed Zanpakuto in Aizen's horrified eyes. How is this possible? Looking at Kurosaki Ichigo who stood in the same place, his face did not change at all, Aizen's eyes showed a touch of horror. Although it was impossible, if Kurosaki Ichigo blocked like before, he could accept it a little, but he actually grabbed his Zanpakuto with his bare hands. How is this possible? Boom! A large area of the ground behind Kurosaki Ichigo sank and a huge fan-shaped deep pit appeared. Although Kurosaki Ichigo's body did not waver at all, the power of the slash followed his body and destroyed all the ground behind him. What's wrong? Are you afraid because you saw what happened in front of you beyond your expectations? The palm suddenly loosened and let go of Aizen's Zanpakuto. Looking at Aizen retreat at the first time, Kurosaki Ichigo did not catch up, just looked at him, and then said in a light tone. This bastard. Retreating to the distance, there is still a trace of horror in Aizen's eyes. The situation just now is really terrible. With his current strength, he is actually blocked by this way. Although I don't know how you did it, it is only a miracle. In order to prevent such a miracle from happening again, let me completely crush you with Kido this time. There was a ferocious expression on his face. Aizen suddenly reached out and a long string of words spat out from the air. Seeping crest of turbidity. Arrogant vessel of lunacy. Boil forth and deny. Grow numb and flicker. Disrupt sleep. Crawling queen of iron. Eternally self-destructing doll of mud. Unite. Repulse. Fill with soil and know your own powerlessness. Hado number 90 Kurohitsuji, Black Coffin. As Aizen said this, a huge black square body appeared around Kurosaki Ichigo's body, completely wrapping his body. A powerful and oppressive aura was emitted from the black square body, as if it wanted to crush all the surrounding space. Die. This black coffin was completely chanted by me. With me now surpassing Shinigami in hollow, I released the black coffin with all my strength. Just the gravity that is enough to distort time and space will surely crush you, Kurosaki Ichigo. Seeing that Kurosaki Ichigo did not make any resistance, allowing the black coffin to wrap his body, Aizen's face suddenly showed a victorious smile. Kurosaki Ichigo was too careless, facing such a Kido like that, he actually did not dodge, he won't survive such attack. Bang! The smile on Aizen's face had not yet faded, and the black coffin that he had high hopes for suddenly shattered, like broken glass, pieces of black glass like fragments fell, revealing the figure of Kurosaki Ichigo inside. The arm maintained the posture of waving and slashing, and Kurosaki Ichigo's eyes were calm, as if he did not realize how amazing what he had done. It seems that you have not noticed. Compared to you, my strength is much stronger. There was not even a single scar left on his body. Kurosaki Ichigo looked at Aizen quietly. There was no emotion in his eyes, but this kind of calm eyes deeply angered Aizen. Seeing Kurosaki Ichigo's eyes without any emotion, he felt a deep shame. Don't be too proud, little brat. A mere human. There was a flustered expression on his face. Aizen's body instantly disintegrated into erasure, and then flashed in front of Kurosaki Ichigo, and Zanpakuto in his hand swung down. Puff. It was clearly the last shot, but Kurosaki Ichigo's Zanpakuto cut Aizen's body first. The cold blade fell from his left shoulder, almost cut his body into two pieces, and the blood of the big cup sprayed out from Aizen. His eyes became blank, and Aizen seemed to be stunned by Kurosaki Ichigo's sword. His mind recovered, but he could not raise any thoughts of fighting at all. Aizen's body disintegrated again and reorganized in the distance. The wounds on his body slowly recovered, and he looked at Kurosaki Ichigo with deep fear in his eyes. Damn, this kid. The color of fear in his eyes was covered by a deeper anger. Aizen's heart surged with an unspeakable sense of humiliation. As someone who surpassed Shinigami in hollow, he was actually beaten like this by a mere human. Don't be too proud, human. His body suddenly burst, the roar of the mouth stopped abruptly, Aizen's head tilted, and his face showed a strange expression. A drop of blood flowed from the vertical eye in the middle of his eyebrows. What kind of monster is this? Seeing Aizen in a purple light pillar of Ryuryoku, Kurosaki Ichigo's eyes suddenly showed surprise. A black face broke open his original face and revealed it outside. It was difficult to connect him with the original Aizen like a monster. The several pairs of wings behind him revealed a pair of half-open eyes, and the top of the wings was the appearance of a head. The current Aizen looked like no different from a monster. I understand. You really can't forgive me. Jayaku, I actually lost to a human. One of the heads on the wings suddenly shook, opened its mouth, and a purple Ryuryoku merged into the mouth. As the head swung, Ryuryoku, who was like a flash, immediately shot towards Kurosaki Ichigo. Boom! A terrifying explosion occurred the moment it came into contact with Ryuryoku's small ball. With the small ball as the center, everything within a radius of 100 meters was swept up by the explosion the moment it came into contact with it, turning into ashes. The exploding flame pillar shot straight into the sky, as if it wanted to pierce through the sky. Who? Although there was a long distance between them, the blast wave of the explosion still affected Muyang, blowing his clothes. It's really terrible, this kind of monster destructive power. Feeling the power of the attack just now, Muyang's face changed. It was just a casual attack. There was such a power. If he went all out, what kind of destructive power would Aizen have now? Did you avoid it? It's really amazing. However, can you avoid it this time? After saying that, Aizen stamped his foot, accompanied by a violent burst of air, and Aizen's body appeared in front of Kurosaki Ichigo, a hand clutching Kurosaki Ichigo's neck, and several pairs of wings behind him danced in an instant, surrounding Kurosaki Ichigo's body, and the top of each wing was condensed with small balls with a horrible aura. Boom! The attacks on several heads were released at the same time, bombarding Aizen's body, and then at the moment when Aizen's attack fell, a terrible fluctuation spread out, and the impact was more violent than before spread to the four directions. Kurosaki Ichigo. You were indeed a Serpa destroyed the boundary between Shinigami and the void. But now, you have completely lost your power. You are no longer worthy of my understanding. As a surpasser, you will die in my hands. And I will kill you and completely bid farewell to low-level creatures like Shinigami and the void. It is over, Kurosaki Ichigo. You said it is over. Is that all? Kurosaki Ichigo, who had been lowering his head, suddenly raised his head. His eyes were still calm. Swish. With a wave of Zanpakuto in his hand, he easily destroyed the thing that bound him. Kurosaki Ichigo broke away from Aizen's blockade, and under his calm expression hid a strong self-confidence. Don't joke. Aizen, I have had enough of your set. I will let you see, the last Getsuga Tensho. With a flash of determination in his eyes, Kurosaki Ichigo held the wrist of his right hand with his left hand. A breath full of oppression suddenly broke out, and a black breath floated between heaven and earth. He raised his arm, and the Zanpakuto in Kurosaki Ichigo's hand broke. The last Getsuga Tensho is becoming the Getsuga Tensho itself. The black aura around his body dispersed, revealing Kurosaki Ichigo's figure. A head of long black hair reached his waist. His body was wrapped in circles of bandages. His face was also covered by a mask that covered the lower half of his face. Threads of black aura floated around Ichigo's body, flickering and flickering, giving people a wonderful feeling. As long as I use this move, I will lose all of Shinigami's strength. The so-called last is this meaning. I can't feel it. Looking at Kurosaki Ichigo in front of him, Aizen's heart was surprised and bewildered, and he still could not feel any breath about him. Could it be? In his mind, he remembered the situation when other people could not perceive his Ryu-ryoku, and a thought that he could not believe rose in Aizen's heart. Now, I have completed the evolution and surpassed Shinigami's dimension, just like the things in the second dimension cannot interfere with the third dimension. As long as I do not deliberately lower the level to avoid interference, whether it is Shinigami or human, they can't feel my Ryu-ryoku. Is this guy already in a higher dimension than me? Impossible. That is absolutely impossible, but it is just a human, how can it surpass me? That is impossible. Almost crazy to Kurosaki Ichigo in the distance, Aizen can't accept his guess at all. How can the power he painstakingly obtained be surpassed by a mere human? His eyes were calm, and there was no fluctuation because of Aizen's words. Kurosaki Ichigo stretched out his arm and a black aura gathered in the middle of his palm. As soon as his palm clenched, it was like holding a Zanpakuto. Kurosaki Ichigo raised his arm high and then waved it down. Mujetsu. Silently, black descended, and a touch of black spread from the place where Kurosaki Ichigo's arm swung down, crossed the sky, crossed the earth, and crossed Aizen's body. Everything was meaningless under the darkness and was directly cut into two pieces. The darkness dispersed, and Ichigo's body slowly fell down. The mask on his face suddenly shattered, turning into a black Ryu-ryoku and disappearing. Pa! A figure fell from the sky and hit the ground, raising a cloud of dust. Ha! With a frown, Kurosaki Ichigo's body flashed and instantly appeared in the direction of the fall. Looking at Aizen, who had been cut into two pieces by his own attack just now, his eyes showed a complicated look. Sizzle. The wound that was cut in two suddenly healed again, and Aizen's body moved slightly. Do you want to regenerate again? His eyes moved, and Kurosaki Ichigo raised his arm. Just as he was about to give Aizen another attack, his body suddenly shook. His black hair suddenly disappeared, revealing his original golden hair. The bandages wrapped around his body also disappeared in an instant, and his body suddenly collapsed. The body stood straight, and Aizen aimed his own Zanpakuto at Kurosaki Ichigo, his eyes showing the pride of the winner. You lost, Kurosaki Ichigo. You see, my Zanpakuto is gradually disappearing, you should know what this means. Jayaku thinks I don't need Zanpakuto anymore. Just like you who are one with Zanpakuto, no. Now I, compared to you who lost your strength, have risen to a new height. It's over, Kurosaki Ichigo. Looking at Kurosaki Ichigo who was lying in front of him, Aizen's face was slightly crazy. Boom. Just as Aizen was about to shoot, a red light suddenly flashed from his chest. What is this, Kido? When did this happen? Looking at the continuous light appearing on the body, Aizen's face showed a trace of panic. He could feel that his Ryuryoku was actually bound and could not be released. It seems that it is finally activated. A familiar voice came from behind Aizen. Kisuke. Aizen gritted his teeth and said the name of the person, and Aizen slowly turned his head. Looking at Kisuke who appeared behind him at some point, there was a deep hatred in his eyes. It was you who did it. That's right, that Kido entered your body with the other Kido when you were at your most relaxed state before you completed your transformation. He recalled that the number 90 had released by Kisuke when he appeared was actually shot into his body at that time. That is a seal. Considering that it is almost impossible to kill you after you merged with Jayaku, so in order to seal you, a new Kido was specially developed. Is it, but it is a pity. I am now about to complete further evolution. With your level of Kido, you can't seal me at all. Bang! Just as Aizen wanted to break free from the seal, the layer of white substance wrapped around his arm suddenly shattered, revealing his own arm. This is... Seeing what happened to him, Aizen's pupils suddenly contracted, and the power in his hand disappeared. That is Jayaku's will. Noticing Aizen's eyes, Kisuke then said, the seal that entered your body at that time can finally be activated now, because your strength is weakened. Thanks to Kurosaki, because he fought with you and forced you to such a point, the seal will start to activate. Jayaku doesn't admit that you are the master. How can it be? How can it be, that kind of thing? His eyes were full of disbelief, and suddenly a few red spears made of Ryatsu appeared from Aizen's body and ran through his body. Under the effect of that force, Aizen's body was instantly tightened and could not move. Kisuke. I really look down on you. You clearly have such a mind, why don't you act? Why are you willing to obey that kind of thing? That kind of thing, do you mean Soul King? This way, you have seen it. The words with Aizen were confusing, and Kisuke's eyes showed a trace of deep. If there is no Soul King, Soul Society will split. Soul King is like a wedge. Once it is lost, it is easy to collapse. The so-called world is like this. That is the theory of the loser. The winner should not discuss what this world is like, but should emphasize what this world should be. And I dash. Bang. Aizen's unwilling cry stopped abruptly. With his ambition and resentment, it turned into a seal and appeared in the air. In the bleak world, a seal stand stood alone there. Although it finally won, Kurosaki Ichigo did not feel the slightest joy of victory. Instead, his heart was filled with an inexplicable sadness. I am Satoshi, the vice president of the football club, and I hope to use the power of Kurosaki-senpai. Don't be long-winded. Just tell me the time and reward. Ichigo, huh? Are you busy talking about the deal again? Kojima, who was going to ask Ichigo to go back with him, looked at Ichigo who was talking with a group of juniors, and a trace of helplessness flashed across his face. Yeah, the lease contract with the basketball club has expired, so now I have to find a new job. Leaning on the chair and looking at Ichigo who was bargaining with his junior, Kigo revealed a helpless expression. What a headache. I can't play with Ichigo anymore. Don't say it like Ichigo will usually play with you. Of course he will play with me. I am not idle enough to always appear at the place where Ichigo works. I make him feel very annoyed. Yes, I understand. Have you finished? Yes. When will it start? Today is the day. Looking at Kurosaki Ichigo who had picked up his bag and turned to leave, Kojima and Kigo looked at each other, their eyes full of helplessness. After what happened more than a year ago, through Orihime and the others, they also learned about the things about Ichigo and Death God. Of course, they also knew that Ichigo had lost that power. But after that, although Ichigo did not want to do those strange things anymore. However, not long after, she fell in love with working. She always used her free time to do all kinds of part-time jobs and worked hard to earn money. She did not have much time to play with them. Oh yeah, I think I saw you on a date with a beautiful woman a few days ago. How hateful. Ah, did you see it? But who are you talking about? I have been out with many girls recently. Bastard. Don't provoke me like this. When he heard Island Kojima's words, Kigo's face immediately revealed a sense of grief and indignation. Why was Kojima so popular with girls, and he still didn't have a girlfriend until now? Oh right, I remember that you also work outside, and you are in the same store as the well. How do you have time to waste here? Don't rush to work. Don't mention that job to me. The store manager has never paid me a single cent, and he always orders me to do all kinds of things. He is simply a vampire. Hearing Kojima mention his work, Kigo immediately said angrily, his eyes hiding a wronged expression. There is such a boss. Does he not pay the salary to the well? Looking away from the phone, Kojima looked at Kigo seriously. If even the salary on the well was deducted, their companions could not sit idly by. Inoue's share has always been paid, but it has never been paid to me. It must be because you hate it too much. That's why they don't pay you. By the way, I still don't know what the shop you work in is. It's a coffee shop called Ending District. Is it that one? The store manager over there is very good. He isn't the kind of person you're talking about, is he? What? Kojima, you've been there before. I know. Kojima, you must also be there to see those big sisters, right? I knew it. Those big sisters over there are all very beautiful, right? Right. Suddenly, a look of a pig appeared on his face. Kigo's eyes were red, and as he spoke, he became excited. His hands were constantly beating Kojima's shoulders, his face full of excitement. I think I finally know why the store manager didn't give you a salary. He turned his head, pretending that he didn't know his companion beside him. Kojima looked disgusted. I'm here, Sister Kusu. Looking up at the golden-haired girl who appeared at the entrance of the shop, a doting smile appeared on Suzuki Kusu's face. This naturally optimistic girl seemed to always be so happy. She always had a smile on her face, and her sunny smile would always affect the people around her, making everyone involuntarily happy. I've already told you many times. Don't rush over as soon as school is over, Orihime. As a student, you should enjoy the life of a student. Even if you go out with your friends, it will be good. Ah ha ha. That's not it. Sister Nan, the salary you pay me is so high. If I don't work hard, how can I be embarrassed? She touched her head in embarrassment. On the well, Orihime blushed. As a student, she only came to work after classes and weekends, but the salary she got was higher than many adults. She also knew that the other party was taking care of her, but her usual personality made her not know how to refuse, so she had to work more seriously. And my friends all have things to do. They have found a job outside, and everyone is very popular. Is that so? Children nowadays are all very serious. Since you're here, go to the back and change into your overalls. Oh, there's a surprise later. Surprise? Hearing Suzuki Kusu's words, a trace of doubt flashed through Oriheim's mind, but she still walked back as usual. The back of the shop was where the staff of the shop lived, even if she had a small room, although she rarely stayed here. Oriheim. As soon as she opened the door, a familiar voice suddenly sounded in Oriheim's ears, and then two large, trembling balls hit her face. Ah! Oriheim's face suddenly hit something soft, and her body involuntarily stepped back, and then she felt a pair of arms around her head and pulling it forward, pressing her head against a large ball of softness. Fuku-ha. Oriheim took 2 deep breaths and looked at the person in front of him with her face. His eyes looked like they were about to drip water. There was a hint of embarrassment in her tone. Sister Ranjaku, you are like this again. I was almost suffocated to death. Oriheim is angry. Looking at Oriheim on the well, Ranjaku put a finger on her lips and looked at Oriheim with a look of embarrassment, her eyes a bit pitiful. No, I'm not angry. It's just. If you are really angry, why don't you do the same thing to me with your chest, Oriheim? I want mine. Taking a few steps back, Matsumoto Ranjaku swept Oriheim's chest with a provocative look, and her tone was full of teasing, looking ambiguous. Sister Ranjaku. With both hands on her chest, Oriheim's cheeks were red as if they were about to drip into the water. It was unknown how many times such things had happened. Almost every time she met Sister Ranjaku, she would be teased like this. But until now, Oriheim was still not used to this point. Every time he was teased, her face would turn red. Alright, I won't talk about you anymore. Go and change your clothes. You are the lucky tree here. If you delay your work, you will definitely be told by that fellow Kimura. However, even after so many times, every time I see you blushing, I find it very interesting. Sister Ranjaku. With a flushed face, Oriheim pushed the Matsumoto Ranjaku out. Oriheim returned to her room and took out her work clothes. The blush on her face could not fade for a long time. Really? Every time I come over, I have to tease her. However, Sister Ranjaku came here to see Mr. Ikamaru. I am really envious. She can express her feelings without reservation. If I can. She unconsciously imagined the scene of him and Kurosaki Ichigo getting close to each other, and the blush on Oriheim's face deepened. No, what are you thinking about? Oriheim, it's really embarrassing. Hurry up and change your clothes and go out to help. She shook her head hard and threw away the messy thoughts in her mind. Oriheim changed into her work clothes and walked outside. There was still a trace of blush on her face. Miss Waiter, please excuse us. We want 2 cups of coffee here. Sister Oriheim, we also want to. You are really cunning. You actually attract business through Oriheim's cute appearance. Looking at the lively atmosphere outside because of the appearance of Oriheim, Matsumoto Ranjaku rolled her eyes at Muyang. Don't say that. The salary I pay her is higher than the average official employee. Putting down the cup in his hand, Muyang said discontentedly, she said it as if she was a vicious capitalist. In fact, she was just the manager of a small coffee shop. It sounds so nice. Among the people here, besides Oriheim, who else have you paid for? Ahem. Reaching out to cover his mouth, Muyang coughed twice, and his gaze fell on Matsumoto Ranjaku's face. Don't mind these small things. Let's get down to business. It can explain why you are here. As a vice captain, you won't run to the modern realm for no reason, right? Even if Chur Hitsugaya covers you, He won't let you appear at such a high frequency, not to mention this time you will stay in the modern realm for a long time. Eh? Did I appear at a high frequency during this time? Putting down the cup in her hand, Matsumoto Ranjaku leaned forward and said thoughtfully, her full chest pressed on the table, revealing a deep and attractive gully. Speak properly. Really, then I'll just say it directly. Sitting up straight, the smile on Matsumoto Ranjaku's face disappeared, revealing a serious look. Soul Society recently detected the first agent of Death God, Ryuryoku. The location is in Karakura City and Naruki City. Moreover, he found out the fact that the other party is in contact with Kurosaki Ichigo. It's over. Supporting Muyang, Suzuki Kusu looked at what was happening in the distance. A relaxed smile appeared on her face. The battle that had been brewing for 100 years had finally come to an end today. Yes, it's finally over, but it left behind a mess. His eyes swept over the ruined scene around him. Fortunately, this was just an imitation of the Karakura city. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. It would probably cause the world to lose balance. Moreover, whether it was the Gotei 13, or the people of Visored Legion, they were all scarred. Although they did not die, they were also seriously injured. At least they could not move normally for a short time. The dark clouds in the sky were gradually dispersed because of the previous battle. The sun shone down from the sky and shone on the battlefield. The ruined city suddenly gave people a feeling of hope. It's good that you did not die. The flowery gown on his body had long disappeared. Even the captain's Haori was destroyed in the previous battle. Kiraku Shunsui looked a little embarrassed. The bamboo hat on his head was destroyed in the battle. At this time, he could only reach out to cover his forehead to cover the dazzling sun. And the others are still alive. Looking at the captains who got up one by one beside him, Kiraku Shunsui showed a smile on his face. Although everyone was beaten very badly, but fortunately, no one died and all lived well. Yes, really lucky. Sure Yukatake, who had woken up at some time, walked to the side of Kiraku Shunsui and echoed. However, it is really embarrassing. There is no use in this battle at all. After the war, you will definitely be taught a lesson by teacher Genrosai Shigekuni. Speaking of the battle, Kiraku Shunsui and Sure Yukatake looked at each other. Both of them showed a bitter smile in their eyes. They had not played any role in this battle. They were killed in a muddle. Then the battle ended in a muddle. However, speaking of old man Yamamoto, his body. Well, Captain Unohana has gone to see it, but it seems that it is not important. Although the left arm is lost, there is no problem in other aspects. It will be fine after resting for a while. That's good. The current Soul Society can't afford to lose him. If there is a problem with his body, there is no one who can replace him at all, then it will be dangerous. It is really shameful to talk about it. It is also because of our incompetence that such a situation happened. Hearing Sure Yukate's words, Kiraku Shunsui sighed. It is not wrong to say that. Yamamoto Genryusai, as the strongest Shinigami in Soul Society's 1,000 years, has always held the position of first captain of Gotei 13. It is because for 1,000 years, no one has been able to surpass him. It is indeed that these juniors are too disappointing. However, the battle ended because of a human. That little brat called Kurosaki Ichigo actually grew to such an extent without us knowing. Yeah, such a result really makes me blush with shame. Looking at Kurosaki Ichigo who was far away, Kiraku Shunsui's tone was very emotional, then his gaze turned and fell on Muyang and his group not far away. I'll go over there first. Seeing where Kiraku Shunsui's line of sight was, Sure Yukatake smiled slightly and moved aside. You go first. I will go and see the situation of the other captains. His body flashed a few times and landed in front of Muyang. Looking at Muyang who was supported by Suzuki Kusu, Kiraku Shunsui said, "Thank you so much. If you did not fight to the death, no one knew how the situation of this battle would develop. Of course, there are these two Arrancar friends. Although you are Arrancar, at least in this battle, our position is the same. Don't say that. The reason why this battle can be won is all thanks to Ichigo. If he didn't pay the price of losing Ryoryoku, the result of this battle is still unknown. Don't be modest, I saw it. If not for the uniqueness of Aizen's body that made him unable to be killed, you would have ended the battle long ago. Moreover, if you didn't insist on fighting until Kurosaki-san appeared, the final result of the battle would not be hard to predict. Hearing Kuraka Shunsui's answer, Muyang's face suddenly showed a smile. I thought you fainted. I didn't expect that you have been very clear about the battle. However, with your personality, you actually didn't intervene when I was fighting. It is really strange. Well, don't say that. In fact, I have been looking for a time to make a move, but I really did not find a suitable time to intervene. Your fighting rhythm is too fast. And I see that you seem to be able to solve it by yourself, so I just steal a lazy, who told you to be so strong. Waving his hand, Kuraka Shunsui said shameless words without any embarrassment, then his face changed and his tone changed. However, this battle really left a lot of problems. His eyes swept around and looked at Aizen, who was sealed in the distance. Several people on Muyang's side, and several people of Visored Legion in the distance who had just been cured, finally fell on Yamamoto head captain. Let's talk about the problem on your side first. Although it has proven that those things were planned by Aizen, it is an indisputable fact that you once defected to Soul Society. Even if you helped us in this battle, there is no doubt that these companions of yours are Arrancar. Soul Society will not tolerate Arrancar living in human world like this. Besides, head captain lost an arm in the battle, and how the follow-up treatment will be unknown. Soul Society now needs strength. After saying a call, Kuraka Shunsui stared at Muyang with burning eyes, waiting for his answer. With the strength that Muyang showed in the previous battle, if there is anyone who is closest to head captain, it must be him. Muyang was slightly silent. Although Kuraka Shunsui's words were a little messy, and he emphasized the fact that Muyang and others had defected to Soul Society before. He said that Soul Society would not allow Arrancar to live in human world, and finally said that Soul Society needed strength in that tone, but Muyang understood the meaning of the other party. It was to let him return to Soul Society and return to Godai 13, so that he could eliminate the past and present things. Returning to Soul Society and joining Godai 13, this is a request, an invitation, and also an agreement. In fact, when you said before that you watched my battle and did not make a move, I thought in my heart. I was also like this. Without returning to Kuraka Shunsui, Muyang spoke softly, his tone low, his eyes fell on Kurosaki Ichigo in the distance. From this side, he could only see a vague shadow. At this time he was surrounded by his companions. How ridiculous, as a swordsman, he actually retreated in the battle. Desire for power, dedication to power. Because of this desire and persistence, I am afraid of losing power. In the end, I lost my power because of this fear. Isn't this ridiculous? Hearing Muyang suddenly say these words, Kuraka Shunsui's face showed some surprise and bewilderment. There was a faint guess in his heart, but he was not sure. It was too shocking. In the surprised eyes of the surrounding people, Muyang put his hand on Zanpakuto at his waist and slowly pulled out his Zanpakuto. How could this be? Seeing Muyang pull out his Zanpakuto, the people on the side all revealed looks of shock. His Zanpakuto, which was pulled out from Muyang's scabbard, only had half a body. A person who cannot give up anything cannot do anything. As a swordsman, I have lost the determination to press forward. I have lost the qualifications to use Hikaz. Seeing the lonely expression on Muyang's face, Suzuki Kusu, who was at the side, quietly held his hand and shook it hard. He turned his head to smile at her, and a hint of relief appeared on Muyang's face. However, the battle is over. Although he has lost his strength, it is not bad. At least he has friends he values and can do things he likes. I think it is a wonderful thing for a human to live. As for the sword in his hand, it is better to put it in the sheath. Don't talk about it so seriously. Even if you want to lower the vigilance of others, you don't have to tell me. Reaching out to pat Muyang on the shoulder, Kiraku Shunsui had a strange smile on his face. Even if you can't use Zanpakuto, with your ability, you are absolutely not a weakling. I don't remember that you are a person who only relies on Zanpakuto's ability. Moreover, I believe that with your ability, you can definitely repair it again, whether it is Shirkai or Bankai. However, since you want to quietly stay in the modern world, it is up to you. I will try to solve the matter of soul society for you. Really, to negotiate with those old guys again, it is really troublesome. Looking at Kiraku Shunsui who waved his hand and left, Muyang's face showed a smile, and there was a warm feeling in his heart. Even the depression of temporarily losing Zanpakuto's strength seemed to have subsided a lot. That. As Muyang chatted with Kiraku, the silver-haired youth walked in front of Muyang with a smile. I heard that you opened a coffee shop in the modern realm. I wonder if you can take in a person who has nowhere to go. He raised his head and looked at the youth in front of him with interest. Even now, Muyang could not see through what he was thinking. It was just like the smile on his face right now. No one knew what was hidden under this smile. Of course. I have always loved homeless little animals. Even if it is a snake. No, it is a fox. The fox on the other side laughed happily, but who knew what was hidden under that smile? So that's how it is. His fingers unconsciously rubbed the cup in front of him a few times, and Muyang's face showed a smile that Matsumoto Ranjaku could not understand. But since it is something related to Ichigo, why would it send you? Compared to you, it should be Rukia who is more familiar with Ichigo. Who made me now the direct person in charge of the connection between Soul Society and you? Besides, Rukia is here too, but she just didn't come to look for you. She must have other ideas. Don't be so reluctant. It wasn't easy for you to get this job. I remember you asked a lot of people to help you. Well, I know what you're thinking. Go, I'll give the fox a few days off. Thank you, you're the best boss. Matsumoto Ranjaku jumped up and cheered, and then ran out with her trembling chest, her face full of the joy of a little woman. Ah, the proud cat and the proud fox, so interesting. Looking through the room, looking at Ranjaku who excitedly ran out with Ikemara Jin, Muyang showed a smile on his face. Compared with this. His eyes fell on the cup, looking at the coffee that spread a layer of ripples. Muyang's eyes were deep, making people unable to understand what emotions were hidden inside. What's wrong? What did Ranjaku say? Suzuki Kusu walked behind Kimura Muyang at some point, and placed her hands on his shoulders to lightly beat him. Soft tone. Nothing. Reaching out and holding the other person's hand, Muyang's heart gradually calmed down. As long as there was such a person accompanying him like this, there was nothing to worry about. This matter does not matter. It is not a big deal. As long as the other party does not provoke us, do not pay attention. Of course, if Soul Society made a request, he naturally has to help. What I care more about now is the matter of Hueco Mundo. Although Stark has already investigated, I still can't put down a little. Hearing Muyang's words, Suzuki Kusu's body slightly paused. She also knew something about what happened in Hueco Mundo. This time things were not ordinary. Don't worry. You also know the strength of Stark, but there is no problem with the investigation. Just wait in peace. You should know the specific situation in these 2 days. That's the only way. Standing up, Muyang looked at the sky through the window. Was such a quiet and peaceful life coming to an end? He had finally managed to lead such a life with great difficulty. He really couldn't bear to part with it. However, why did his body tremble when he thought of the possibility of enemies appearing and his peaceful life being destroyed and forced to fight with all kinds of enemies he didn't know at all? A strong desire would emerge in the depths of his heart. Sure enough, you are still a person who likes to fight. Walking to Muyang's side, she leaned into his embrace and wrapped her arms around his body. Suzuki Kusu's voice was very gentle. Although you also enjoy a quiet and peaceful life, deep in your bones, you still desire to fight. You like the crisp sound of swords clashing, enjoy the feeling of blades brushing past you, and the satisfaction of sending your blade into your enemy's body. Will you feel uncomfortable living with me like this? I know that you don't like to fight. No, you are the real you in my heart, and also the one I like the most. I like to see you waving Zanpakuto to kill the enemy. The two of them stood in front of the window, quietly watching the sun gradually setting on the horizon. Their hearts were full of peace. Someone is being attacked. Suzuki Kusu, who was leaning against Muyang, suddenly said. Yes. It's Ichigo's companion, the Quincy called Ishida Yuri. Well. After a pause, Muyang went on to say. It's Jinjiko, but what does this have to do with us? As long as they don't provoke us, they can do whatever they want. I also want to enjoy a few more days of quiet life. There is not much time. Yes. Suzuki Kusu buried her head back into Muyang's chest and slowly closed her eyes. Through the recent events, both of them felt a sense of oppression. An unprecedented battle was about to break out. It was an even more intense battle than the previous one. No one could avoid it. Therefore, at least before the battle began, they would enjoy this precious peace. Bang! Putting the thing in his hand on the table, Hiyori threw her body into the sofa. Huh! His eyes came out of the comic book. He glanced at Hiyori on the side, but he did not say anything. Love buried his head down again and burst into laughter. Humph! Seeing Love's reaction, Hiyori snorted heavily. That, Hiyori, what happened to you? Seeing Hiyori's reaction, Ashoda Hachijin, who was sitting on the side, suddenly opened his mouth and said, his tone as gentle as before. My body is fine. Damn it, Shinji and those guys actually went back to Soul Society to be a captain, bastard. That's because Soul Society is very weak now and needs someone to fill in the vacant position of captain. Isn't there a 3rd division captain who defected here before? Why didn't he call that fox-like guy to go back and continue to be a captain? Hiyori, didn't you say it yourself? He is the captain who defected before. Although he has his own difficulties, Soul Society will not accept him to continue to be the captain. What difficulties? Isn't it just for a big-chested woman? Damn it, why can that guy not work again? And you too, actually do nothing, damn it. This is what you want to say the most, Hiyori, right? Love poked his head out of the comic book and said indifferently. So what if it's like this? Speaking of which, why didn't you return to Soul Society? Why did you insist on staying here and not doing anything? Because Soul Society didn't have. If I leave the comic book world now, I won't be able to live. After giving a faint explanation, Love buried his head in the comic book again, and then burst into laughter again. So why didn't Rose stay? In this way, he could go out and play for a while. At least he could pull the business. It was better than this bastard. Picking up her things from the table, Hiyori walked to the front hall with dissatisfaction on her face. Although she complained, she still had to finish the work she had to do. Thinking of the rules listed by Muyang, Hiyori gritted her teeth. That baldy Kimura actually made those demands. Bastard. Suddenly stopped, Ikemura Jin's gaze turned to the distance, he felt a collision of Ryatsu, that direction was Kurosaki Ichigo's house. What's the matter, Jin? Matsumoto Ranjaku turned her head strangely and looked at the silver-haired man who stood still, a trace of doubt on her face. No, it's fine. By the way, didn't you say before that you wanted to go see the clothes? This is the commercial street, right? Ah, right. I remember seeing a very good shop here when I came last time. I like the clothes inside very much. It seems to be not far ahead. Let's hurry over. Hurry up, Jin. Yes, yes. His arm was pulled. Ikemara Jin dragged his footsteps and followed Matsumoto Ranjaku. Finally, he took a look at the abnormal direction he felt before. Then he retracted his eyes and quickly followed Matsumoto Ranjaku. Looking at the cheering woman in front of him, a happy smile appeared on his face. Although in the end, he couldn't take back what was taken away from Ranjaku, but at least, he could keep looking at her smiling face. As long as it was like this, it was enough. General Hospital. Ishida, what is going on? Looking at Ishida Yuri who was lying on the bed, Kurosaki Ichigo asked nervously. It has nothing to do with you. Ishida Yuri's voice came from behind the curtain. Although his heart was very touched by Kurosaki Ichigo's concern, he knew that Kurosaki Ichigo, who had lost his strength now, should not be involved in these things. How can it be unrelated? You are already injured. If you can't deal with it yourself, of course, everyone should think of a way together. Tell me quickly. Hearing Ishida Yuri's refusal, Kurosaki Ichigo waved his fist and said excitedly. Although he had lost his strength now, he could not watch his companion get hurt without doing anything. The sharing of information is very important. Do you want to disappoint your companion's good intentions? Shut up. Oh, what a pity. If your voice was higher, the wound would crack again. Hearing his son roaring at him, Ishida Ryukin was not angry at all. Instead, he leaned against the wall and teased. Ishida. Sorry, Inoue, now I really have nothing to comment, you should go back first. Kurosaki. Ah. Oh, it's already so late, you must be very sleepy, right? Let me send you back. Returning to his senses, Kurosaki Ichigo looked at Oriheim on the side and said. Hearing Kurosaki Ichigo's invitation, Oriheim immediately fell into a violent sense of happiness. He said in a flurry, and his face could not help but blush. I'll drive her back. You should go back early too. If you stay outside too late, your father will be long-winded again. Looking at Ishida Ryukin who was holding Inoue Oriheim's shoulders, a strange color flashed in Kurosaki Ichigo's eyes, and then he covered it up. I understand. Thank you. Bowing deeply to Ishida Ryukin, Kurosaki Ichigo turned around and left Ishida Yuri's ward, quickly running outside. Hoo. As he ran, he left Ishida's hospital. Only when his legs were trembling and he could no longer run did Kurosaki Ichigo stop. He reached out to hold on to an electric pole and let out a burst of rapid breathing sound. Damn it! What happened? In a place where I don't know, is there no place for me to help? Clenching his fists tightly, a strong sense of unwillingness rose in Kurosaki Ichigo's heart. He recalled Ishida's father's actions in the ward and his nails dug deep into his palms. Although he knew that he could do nothing when he lost his strength and would only make Ishida and the others feel restrained, he was really unwilling. Slowly releasing his clenched fist, Ichigo reached into his pocket and took out a pure black card with a line of English letters on it. The strange man's face flashed through his mind, and a trace of determination flashed through Kurosaki Ichigo's eyes. No matter what kind of thoughts the other party had, only he could help him now. In Ishida Yuri's ward. He can't help much, so I only told you that the one who slash Yuryu is not a Shinigami. Of course not Shinigami. I investigated the remnants of Ryuryoku on your wound. To be honest, I doubt whether it should be called Ryuryoku. That is the type of Ryuryoku I have never come into contact with until now. That is. Don't ask me. I have told you everything I know just now. Even the people who are cut know nothing about the enemy. In fact, it is not that Yuryu does not tell you, but he does not know what to say at all. No way. Hearing Ishida Longshan's explanation, Oriheim's face showed a trace of shock. With Ishida's strength, after being cut, he even knew nothing about the enemy. This is my speculation. The enemy may be a human with some kind of power that we do not know. And compared to Shinigami, it is closer to you and Chad. If we roughly distinguish it, Yuryu, as a Quincy, can also be counted. Assuming that the attack on Yuryu Ishida is regarded as attack the same kind of human, then it will be your or Chad's turn to be attacked next. Sorry. Taking a leave at a time like this. But I really have something important to do tonight. Bowing to Suzuki Kusu, Orihime said with a slight blush on her face. It doesn't matter. If you have something to do, just go and do it. You just have to enjoy it when you are young. Is it going to go on a date with Ichigo, Orihime? She readily approved Orihime's request for leave on the well. Then, Suzuki Kusu's face revealed a trace of an ambiguous expression as she asked Orihime in a mysterious voice. It seemed that it was because she had been staying with Matsumoto Ranjaku for a long time. Suzuki Kusu seemed to like teasing Orihime. Every time she saw her become busy because of the play, Suzuki Kusu would find it very interesting. It was rare to hear that Suzuki Kusu made fun of her, but Orihime's face did not show any different colors. She just touched her head in embarrassment. Then, she bowed deeply to Suzuki Kusu and turned around to run away. Is this really okay? Retracting his gaze from Orihime, Muyang's gaze fell on the two people behind him. If we let the situation continue to develop like this, no one can guarantee what will happen. Let's leave it at that. Our preparations have not been completely completed. Moreover, this is also a test from Soul Society. We just need to watch from the side and control the direction of the matter. I'm not talking about this. Moreover, I believe that Ichigo will not be stumped by such a small matter. He shifted his gaze from the unscrupulous merchant to the middle-aged uncle beside him. A hint of ridicule appeared in Muyang's eyes. Are we just going to let Orihime be in contact with the other party like this? That is your future daughter-in-law. What? The uncle, who had a calm expression, suddenly became agitated. He grabbed Muyang's shoulder and the emotion in his eyes became extremely agitated. Are you saying that Orihime is Ichigo's girlfriend? That's great. But I thought that Ichigo would like a girl like Rukia. Halfway through his words, Kurosaki Ishin suddenly stopped. He reached out his hand and touched his chin, his eyes revealing a trace of thinking. Orihime is very good. She is beautiful and good-natured, and she likes our family Ichigo very much. However, Rukia-chan seems to be very cute. What should I do? Then, let's go back to the original topic. Ignoring Kurosaki Ishin, who had fallen into a delusion, Kisuke looked at Muyang and pulled the topic back to the original point. This thing, I have no reason to refuse it at all. By the way, should we let Harabel and the others also import their Ryuryoku? You really like to joke, they are Erankar. It's not bad, doesn't Ichigo himself also have a hollow power, and Shinji and the others also lost their Ryuryoku? If you insist, but I can't guarantee what will happen. Looking at Kisuke's expression, Muyang shook his head helplessly. You. Alright, let's end the discussion about Kurosaki Ichigo for now. Let's talk about other topics, such as the interesting things that happened in Hueco Mundo recently. Seriously, is Chad not home? Seeing the closed house of Chad, a hint of worry flashed through Orihime's eyes. What Ishida's father had said last night rang in his mind again. Assuming that the attack on Yuryu is to attack humans of the same unusual power, it will be your or Chad's turn to be attacked next. Ishida is still in the hospital, and Chad is unable to be located. In the end. Speaking of which, Sister Ranjaku has also come to the modern realm. Should we ask her? And Sister Kusu, if we ask them, we should be able to get some help, right? No, if we follow what Ishida's father said, this is only for our actions. We can't drag other people into this. Waving his fist forcefully, Orihime encouraged herself in her heart, then turned around and walked to her apartment. I'm Shishigawara from Miyashita Commercial High School, you are Miss Inoue, I'm sorry. Can you please die? Walking to the front of the house, she pulled her satchel and was just looking for her key when a voice suddenly sounded behind Oriheim. Huh? Turning his head strangely, a trace of surprise flashed in Oriheim's eyes. He suddenly flew out of the air just now. Looking at the person lying on the ground in front of her, a drop of sweat rolled down Oriheim's forehead on the well. How did that person do it? Are you okay? Oriheim carefully leaned forward and asked. Although he was a very strange person, if he just ignored it, there would be trouble. The youth in front of him slowly raised his head, and then his body shook and his head suddenly leaned back, as if he had been struck by a great force. Oriheim looked at the young man in front of her in confusion. She really couldn't understand the other party's behavior. It seemed to be the first time he had encountered such a strange guy. In the eyes of Inoue Oriheim, the strange young man struggled to get up from the ground, then turned his head sideways and said in a very strange posture. Soul. Soul, that's it, life, to take your soul is to kill you, just like your glass's companion. The expression on Oriheim's face suddenly disappeared. Was it you who attacked Ishida? Answer me. A trace of astonishment flashed across the face of the young man named Shishigawara. He seemed to be puzzled by the sudden change in Oriheim, but then he revealed a ferocious expression. Is there any point in answering your question? When I mentioned the glasses guy, didn't I already say the answer? That's true. Reaching out, she placed her hand on the hair clip, and the power of Oriheim was ready to go. Then, tell me about your class. Although your appearance is very dazzling, your words are very ridiculous. That kind of thing can only be asked by strength. Come and knock me down if you have the ability. Okay, that's it. A voice suddenly sounded behind her. Oriheim suddenly stopped. Her pupils dilated slightly, and she was actually approached behind her without noticing. Oriheim's body stiffened slightly. She turned around and looked at the man who had appeared behind her. She suddenly had a very dangerous feeling. The person who attacked Ishida is me. Mr. Tsukishima. Seriously, why did they provoke me? Don't they know that it is very difficult to find such an outstanding employee? You should know that our guest has almost doubled because of Oriheim. After sending off Kisuke and Kurosaki, Muyang had just rested when he suddenly felt strange Ryoryoku, which had appeared beside Oriheim. He stood up again and stretched his hands and feet. A trace of excitement flashed in the depths of his eyes. Come on, you are just looking for an excuse. I think you have been coveting those people for a long time. Even if they did not attack Oriheim, you will find another excuse. You know quite a lot, Hiyori. Taking his own Zanpakuto, Muyang revealed a faint smile. I hope you won't disappoint me too much. At the very least, you have to hold on for a while longer. Come back early, don't stay too late outside. Suzuki Kusu said without raising her head. She focused all her attention on the account book. Ever since she started to run this coffee shop seriously, she had fallen in love with settling accounts. This was a meaningful matter. Although there was no need to keep an eye on her, she liked to look at the account books from time to time and calculate the daily turnover. It gave her a sense of accomplishment, a brand new feeling she had never experienced before. I don't think those people will take me too long, even though I really hope they can delay for a bit longer. Muyang said proudly. He shook his head and rushed toward Oriheim's house. Seriously, I think Kimura is no different from Kenpachi except for his good looks. Looking at the disappearing Muyang, Hiyori tilted her head and turned to look at Suzuki Kusu. Really, I don't know why Kusu is in love with such a guy. Hearing Hiyori's words, Suzuki Kusu finally lifted her gaze and looked at Hiyori, who was lying in front of her, with a bright smile on her face. Perhaps it's just because we are used to each other's existence. Just like you and Shinji. Ha! You mean Shinji, that bald man? Who is familiar with him? That bastard actually ran back to Soul Society to be the captain. What a good-for-nothing guy. He obediently went back after being called. Hearing Suzuki Kusu mention Shinji, Hyora's face suddenly showed a hint of disdain, and then she made a look of disgust. Then you Suzuki Kusu suddenly stopped mid-sentence. When she felt that Muyang had returned, a strange look appeared in her eyes. Although she had told Kimura to come back early, it was too fast. Or was the enemy really so weak? What's wrong? Seeing Suzuki Kusu's action, Hiyori was stunned at first, then she turned her head thoughtfully and saw Muyang appear at the door. So fast. After blurting out the two words, Hyora's face suddenly changed, and her eyes fell on Muyang's tight face. And Stark, who was seriously injured and had lost consciousness. It was too late to greet Suzuki Kusu and Hiyori. Muyang directly ran to the backyard, looking anxious. He could feel that Stark's breath was gradually weakening. Hachi. The voice in his mouth just fell. Ashoda Hachijin, who was originally sitting in the corner, had appeared beside Muyang. He took the seriously injured and unconscious Stark from his hand and carefully put it on the ground. Then a bright yellow crystal wall appeared around Stark's body and surrounded him. The injuries on his body recovered at a speed that was almost visible to the naked eye. What the hell is going on? Several people around at this time opened their mouths to ask Muyang. They were clear about Stark's strength. He was definitely not inferior to the old captain. Now he was actually beaten like this. I don't know. I met Stark halfway, but at that time, he passed out before he could say any information. Stark. At this moment, Lillinette's panicked voice came from the side. She squeezed out several people around her and threw himself at Stark, her eyes flashing with tears. Hachi, how is Stark? Withdrawing his hands and wiping the sweat on his forehead, Ashoda Hachijin glanced at Stark, who was lying in his enchantment, and turned his eyes to Muyang. After my treatment, Mr. Stark has no big problem, but his injury is very serious. To be honest, I don't know when he will wake up. The face was slightly gloomy and nodded, and the cold breath in Muyang's eyes floated. He just went to Hueco Mundo to investigate. I didn't expect that Stark would be beaten like this. Damn, at that time, he should persuade him to go with Lillinette, otherwise he would not be seriously injured because he could not exert his full strength. Can you see the identity of the enemy from his wound? No. Shaking his head, Ashoda Hachijin continued to explain, what remains on the wound is Ryuryoku, which has never been seen before. It does not belong to Shinigami, nor does it belong to Hollow. If you really want to say it, maybe it is closer to Kurosaki Ichigo's companion of Quincy. His eyes suddenly turned cold. Muyang squatted down and reached out to brush the wound on Stark. He felt the vague residual Ryuryoku over there. His eyes gradually became dignified. It could not be wrong. This kind of Ryuryoku was definitely a Quincy. Turning his face, he nodded to his companions on the side, and Muyang's eyes showed a heavy color. It seems that this time, there is really a big thing to investigate. Really, I don't know if I can quietly read manga in the future. Love suddenly said, and the slightly hoarse voice showed the uneasiness in his heart. Hiyori, can I trouble you to invite Kisuke over? Yes, I will go now. Knowing that this matter was of great importance, Hiyori nodded without any hesitation. Her figure flashed and quickly rushed towards Kisuke. What's wrong? Ikemara Jin's voice suddenly came from the side, as if he felt the unusual atmosphere here. At this time, his tone was not as relaxed as usual, but with a rare seriousness and caution. The holiday you got with great difficulty may be ruined, Jin. The development of the matter is far beyond my expectations. Matsumoto Ranjaku, standing beside Ikemara Jin, was slightly stunned and did not know what they were talking about. Can I trouble you to inform Soul Society now, Miss Ranjaku? Of course. Feeling a heavy atmosphere floating in the air, Matsumoto Ranjaku's eyes became serious. The Quincy is back. The pupils suddenly contracted, Matsumoto Ranjaku finally knew the reason why several people here had a heavy face. The Quincy who had been destroyed 200 years ago actually survived. Although there was indeed a companion of Kurosaki Ichigo, the Quincy named Ishida Yuri, but this time the Quincy was absolutely different from him. The teenager had not yet been able to make Muyang and others change their faces. It seems that there is really something amazing. Kisuke appeared at the scene at some point, took the instrument from his body and put it down. The smile on his face disappeared and was replaced with a solemn face. Although now Mr. Stark is in a coma and can't provide us with any information, through the enemy left on his body, the Ryuryoku can still be investigated into something. At least we can analyze the strength of the enemy. Carefully taking out an instrument to collect the remnants of Quincy on Stark's wound, Kisuke began his research with a serious face. Although I have already predicted that something will happen, I didn't expect it to be Quincy. This is really not a pleasant thing. Moreover, I really didn't expect that we will face war so soon. It's okay, we will not lose, because we have something to protect. Glancing at Suzuki Kusu, Muyang's face showed a smile. Yes, he had something that he must protect no matter what he said. No matter who it was, no matter what it was, he should not think about seizing the thing he was guarding. The preliminary result has come out. Staring at the things on the screen in front of him, Kisuke's face was full of caution. Although he had already known that the enemy who could seriously injure Stark like this would not be simple, the mood after the real result was different. According to the analysis of the Ryuryoku, the possibility of Shinigami and Hollow is completely ruled out. Basically, it can be confirmed that Ryuryoku's master is a Quincy. Moreover, some traces of erasure burn on Stark also prove this. In addition to Quincy, I really can't think of anyone who can do this. As he spoke, Kisuke copied his experimental data to the side. Moreover, after preliminary calculations, the strength of Ryuryoku's master is even higher than that of Captain Shinigami. At least in terms of Ryuryoku, he is not inferior to Captain after Bankai. I don't know how many people have such combat strength in the enemy. If there are more than 20, this battle will really be dangerous. After listening to Kisuke's analysis, Love was silent for a while and said. The Quincy who had disappeared for 200 years, no one knew where they had been hiding in these years, and in these 200 years of hiding, it was still unknown what kind of power they had secretly gathered. And the analysis that Kisuke had done before only helped them understand the power of the enemy who attacked Stark. However, they still knew nothing about the enemy forces and other information. It seems that I have to go to Hueco Mundo. After a moment of silence, Muyang suddenly opened his mouth and said. In the face of such a situation, there was no other way than to go deep into the enemy's nest. In the face of a war that would break out at an unknown time, it would be extremely terrible if they could not get the information. Now. Am I so reckless in your eyes? I will wait for Stark to wake up first. At least I can know some important information from his mouth. Although the possibility is very low, maybe Stark has already obtained the detailed information of the enemy. After that, Muyang himself also laughed. Then he found a place to sit next to Stark and closed his eyes. Seoul Society, Suriidei, 12th Division, Technology Development Bureau. Captain, we have received a message from Vice Captain Matsumoto from the Modern Realm. Don't tell me this kind of small thing, just transfer directly to 2nd Division. A hint of dissatisfaction appeared on his face. Kuratsuchi Mayuri looked at the team member who spoke with an unkind expression. Was he too kind to them recently? Even this small matter had to trouble him. Did he not see that he was doing research? It seemed that it was time for them to recall their horror. All kinds of strange thoughts flashed through his mind. Kuratsuchi Mayuri's eyes suddenly became dangerous. At the same time, a long-lost feeling rose in his heart. It seemed to be excited, but also seemed to be expectation. But, the information sent by Vice Captain Matsumoto is the highest level of alert. As if he felt the terrible thoughts in his captain's heart, the team member's body suddenly trembled. Then he suddenly remembered the message from Vice Captain Matsumoto, the highest level of alert, and his face showed tension. What? The highest? Kurotsuchi Mayuri was shocked. He didn't even care about the research he was doing. He quickly walked to the team member who opened the mouth and opened the marked message. Kurotsuchi Mayuri's pupils suddenly contracted, and the muscles on his face were slightly stiff. It's actually that group of guys, it's really the highest level of alert. Although Matsumoto Ranjaku said that it was only the preliminary result of the analysis and there was no more conclusive evidence to prove it, Kurotsuchi Mayuri had basically confirmed this matter. After all, the ones who made this judgment were Kisuke and Muyang. Moreover, thinking of the strange changes in the level warning intensity of the cultivation level of Shutera these days, Kurotsuchi Mayuri's face became more serious. Although the problems that appeared in the beginning were very slight, just a little adjustment would be enough. But if things continued to develop, sooner or later, the world of the modern world and soul society would meet each other. Recently, there have been so many inexplicable disappearances in Hueco Mundo, which makes us need to adjust the deviation of the world from time to time. It is really those guys who are playing tricks. He clenched his fist. Kurotsuchi Mayuri picked up the report he received and turned to the direction of First Division. It was urgent and had to report to head captain and immediately hold a captain meeting. The war might break out. Bang bang bang. A warning sound suddenly sounded in Siriidii, and everyone stopped. Now hold an emergency captain meeting, ask all captains to immediately go to First Division to gather, all vice captain to wait in the waiting room. Repeat, now hold an emergency captain meeting, ask all captains to immediately go to First Division to gather, all vice captain to wait in the waiting room. The captains who are dealing with things in their respective divisions are all baffled. Why do they hold a captain meeting at this time? Is it because of Ichigo? Walking beside Kachiki Byakuya, slightly behind half a body, Abarai Renji asked strangely. A few days ago, Kisuke came to Soul Society and met Yamamoto head captain, and made a bold request to Yamamoto Genryusai head captain. Originally a Shinigami substitute Kurosaki Ichigo. Now he is being pulled into one thing. Because he helped Soul Society to defeat the traitor Aizen, Kurosaki Ichigo who lost Shinigami's strength, now he can't do anything, and he may fall into deeper pain. So Kisuke asked head captain to promise him to help restore Kurosaki Ichigo's strength. Surprisingly, head captain, who has always been known for his rigid and serious character, unexpectedly agreed to this request of Kisuke, and ignored the regulations of transferring Shinigami's strength to human beings is a felony, ordering all captain and vice captain to pour their own Ryuryoku into the device brought by Kisuke in order to help Kurosaki Ichigo restore Shinigami's strength. It should not be. The matter about Kurosaki Ichigo has been finished before the discussion, and has sent Rukia to human world to pay attention to the development of things. There will be no big changes. There may be other things this time. Calm answer to Renji's question, Byakuya's face is always cold, but there is an inexplicable sense of uneasiness in his heart, and he always feels a sense of urgency. Dong! The cane in his hand stamped on the ground, and Yamamoto Genryusai's eyes suddenly opened. All the captains are here. Now we hold the captain meeting. First of all, Captain Kurotsuchi will say the message from Vice Captain Matsumoto, and your opinion of these things. Matsumoto. Chur Hitsugaya, who was still thinking about the purpose of this meeting, was suddenly stunned. Just now, Vice Captain Matsumoto sent a warning message. Muyang said that Quincy is back. What? The faces of the captains who had been quietly listening suddenly changed, and even Kachiki Byakuya, who had been expressionless all the time, had a hint of undisguised shock on his face. Moreover, Muyang's deduction has already been confirmed by Kisuke. Although there is no conclusive evidence, it can basically be confirmed. Looking around at the head room of the team, Kurotsuchi Mayuri's face shows a meaningful expression. Aya, this is really not good news. Raising his hand to press his bamboo hat, Kyoraku Shunsui's tone is slightly heavy, completely different from the usual relaxed laughter. From his tone, you can clearly feel a kind of seriousness. The next thing to say is the discovery of the Technology Development Bureau during this period of time. In these few days, the void in the Hueco Mundo is being destroyed in a large number. It is not a normal purification, but completely destroyed. Combined with the brief message sent back by the Vice Captain Matsumoto, I think all the captains understand what this means. If this situation continues, in a few days, the modern world and Soul Society will collide. After saying what he knew, Kuratsuchi Mayuri returned to his position and waited for the next instructions of head captain. Boom! The cane in his hand fell heavily to the ground and made a dull sound. Breaking the heavy atmosphere in the team's headroom, Yamamoto Genryusai's face was still calm. Since he could win in the battle 1,000 years ago, this time he would definitely defeat the other party. At present, our understanding of the enemy is limited to knowing the identity of the opposite side's Quincy. However, the number of enemies, the stronghold, the ability grasped, and so on are still unknown, but we can't relax the vigilance because of this. Begin immediately, Godiai 13 to enter the state of war alert. All captain and vice captain will carry Zanpakuto at any time, and must be allowed to completely liberate their Zanpakuto at all times. In addition, 10th Division Captain Chur Hitsugaya will go to the modern world to investigate this matter in detail. He'll give you the right to act without restriction, and be sure to get the exact information. The rest of the captain must not leave Siriidii during this period, above. At the end of the meeting, all the captains were dignified. The Quincy, which should have been wiped out 200 years ago, appeared again. This race that was wiped out by Shinigami would never appear for peace again. A war was absolutely inevitable, and it would be a war that would spread to the whole world. As a young captain, for some secret things, Chur Hitsugaya was not very clear, but it did not mean that he was not clear about the importance of this matter. On the contrary, as a young and experienced captain, he was very clear about the terrible things hidden behind this matter. His body kept flashing and rushing in the direction of the gate. Chur Hitsugaya's eyes were full of seriousness. Head captain actually gave him the right to act at a low price, which meant that the importance of things was far beyond his imagination. Walking to the door of the team headroom, Kyoraku Shunsui suddenly noticed that Kuratsuchi Mayuri's body was still standing in the same place, without moving his feet, as if he did not notice the end of the meeting. The footsteps paused. Kyoraku Shunsui just opened his mouth to ask, suddenly thought of something, a trace of fluctuation flashed in his eyes, and finally turned into a plane, turned his head, pressed his bamboo hat, and bowed his head to the outside. The meeting has ended. Do you have anything to report alone, Captain Kuratsuchi? The meeting has ended, but Yamamoto Genryusai did not leave the conference room, as if he had a tacit understanding with Kuratsuchi Mayuri. Slowly opening his eyes, Yamamoto Genryusai's calm eyes fell on Kuratsuchi Mayuri, and he asked faintly. Yes. In order to correct the balance of the soul, you need to get permission, which is to kill the residents of Rakangai in a crisis to maintain the balance. Kuratsuchi Mayuri slowly said his request, and the empty room suddenly fell into silence, and a depressing atmosphere was floating between Yamamoto head captain and Kuratsuchi Mayuri. The biggest difference between Shinigami and Quincy was the way to destroy the Hollow. Shinigami sent the Hollow purification back to Soul Society, while the Quincy killed the Hollow and destroyed its soul. Therefore, since ancient times, Shinigami was called the protector of cycle. That title referred to the nature of Shinigami's work. The number of souls that existed between Soul Society and the modern world always maintained balance. Through the boundary line of Dangai, they blocked and avoided contact with each other. If they did not do this, the balance of the two worlds would collapse, and that would lead to the collapse of both sides. The soul was sent from Soul Society to the modern world in the form of a living creature, and the dead souls were all guided to Soul Society, so that they could master the number of souls and adjust the balance between Soul Society and the modern world, which was Shinigami's job. However, the Quincy was a group of people who destroyed this balance. the Quincy would completely destroy a hollow and its soul. Therefore, the souls that went to the modern world disappeared without returning to soul society. In order to maintain balance, the soul had to keep increasing in the modern world. If this situation was allowed, the balance of the soul would collapse sooner or later. Soul society would flow into the modern world, and the two worlds would collapse at the same time. Now the Quincy appeared again and wantonly destroyed the hollow in the Hueco Mundo, which would cause a serious imbalance between the modern world and soul society. Therefore, when necessary, it must be used to erase the residents of Rukongai to restore the balance between the souls of the two worlds.